Welcome back to Highway Through Health. We're not a crisis line, we're not a therapy show, and we're not licensed healthcare providers. What we are is a place where lived experience is taken seriously because too many people have discovered the more clearly they speak, the worse they're treated. We share personal experience not to give medical advice, but so that when people encounter the kinds of situations we discuss, they're ready to recognize patterns and respond effectively. This show is about language, power, and what happens when systems stop listening and start translating people into problems. If you've ever felt misheard, mislabeled, or punished for staying coherent under pressure, you're in the right place.
I don't really have a topic today. I just doing this hardware situation has been taking up a lot of my time. Hopefully,
Yeah,
I've down to two screws that just need to be tightened and it's all done. So hopefully that won't be
nice.
going on. But what little time I did spend looking around, I did notice there's a little bit of kickback going on about a guy who was in Canada, and apparently he was spotted in a cafe by a psychiatrist. And Canada has massively expanded their mental health
Yes.
laws. And so this person evidently had some kind of interaction with the guy enough to find out how to get a hold of his family members and did, and had him certified
Yeah.
based on a just a conversation. And who knows? We don't know what the conversation was like, but there's video all over the place of this guy getting pulled over by the cops so that this
I
guy can
saw
tell
that.
him, well, you need to come in and be observed in a controlled environment while we ask you
Yeah.
questions. And people are just starting to get a feel for what a creepy thing that really is, because
Yeah.
this is not he's off to hell. There is nothing that he's going to get into that's going to be good for him in any way, shape, or form. This is not um an appointment. This is not asking questions. This is we know that the diagnostic failure rate is 50% or greater. We know that there's numerous false positives, that this is very subjective, and if you get a control freak
Very.
involved in the picture, then everybody's going to get certified. There's just no
That's
brakes
it.
on this machine right now, and I think people are kind of getting a clue about how scary that can be, but they don't really
Mhm.
know how scary it really is because they don't have our experience. I
Right.
think if they had our experience, they would, this would have been a front and center issue a long time ago. So I get mildly hopeful that that is going to kind of pick things up a little bit. But I also read another article about Canada's MAID, and apparently they use one less drug than the American penal system uses to execute people.
Yes.
So they use a sedative and then they give you a muscle paralyzer.
Yeah.
So basically you start going to sleep. And as you and I probably would have a similar opinion that when it comes to life and death emotions, it doesn't matter if you're asleep, you'll start wanting to wake up, right? I mean, it's kind of hard to overcome that when you get to that boundary where one of the other things is going to happen. So this notion that just because somebody's sleeping doesn't mean that they're being terrorized at all,
Right.
think about that, because then what happens is you can't breathe.
Right.
And someone's going to be laying there for the 4 or 5 minutes that it takes, paralyzed. They may not be able to react because their muscles are all paralyzed, and they're on a sedative, so you might not notice them moving. But to just assume that someone's not experiencing terror, or to assume that somebody's suddenly in a better place, is a real terrible thing to do, because I read, again, similar to the guy who got surreptitiously scooped up by the mental health group. There was another incident where a psychiatrist noticed a guy, again in Canada, in a coffee shop, I think it was. And he went over
Yeah.
to him, certified him on the spot, and said, I want to take you over for maid. And he did.
Yeah.
And took him right over and had the guy basically executed.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing that's becoming so casual and so nonchalant. You wonder, if this is such a easy way to go. Why isn't the U.S. penal system doing it? I mean, we use three drugs. We do the same thing.
Right.
We knock people out. They call it a muscle relaxer, and then they put another drug in that stops a person's heart. So those three things, you know,
Yes.
take off. But in Canada, it's a couple less, and we have all these backlogs on, you know, on executions because of cruel, unusual punishment. And you think, well, why don't you just pick up what Canada's doing? And I think the answer is when you start to really pick it apart and get some ethicists who will actually debate the issue and not just let it go. I think you'd have to say, well, you're not doing MRIs, so you're not charting brain activity. You're not looking at what's going on as these people are supposedly passing from one side to the other. You're just assuming that they're going to sleep like your dog or your cat when you're putting them down. But that's not, you know, we don't
Right.
know. And again, it goes back to the whole thing about psych is there's so much assumed knowledge and none of it or very little of it has any validity.
No.
Yet it's forced into our lives.
Yeah, and this is why I speak out about this being very directly related to Nazi Germany, because it is. It's
Mhm.
eugenics. What they are doing is surreptitiously reenacting Action T4, right down to the falsification of medical documentation. It is all happening. That is exactly what's going on. And it is certainly it's happening here, but it's happening worldwide, and it's happening via a lot of these globalist health uh,
Mhm.
so-called concerns.
Yeah.
Because what's going on in Canada is certainly happening here. That's why and it's happening in the Netherlands. It's I forget which country in particular I read where it's really getting outsized already. Um, but it's in the Netherlands. Uh,
Mhm.
and it might have been Sweden, but I can't say 100%, but within that area of the world. Um, and certainly we've seen how they deliberately diagnose people, and it's not even a diagnosis. They deliberately just label people in Russia with these psychiatric
Mhm.
slurs in order to force drug them and then kill them. Here in the U.S., I mean, we've had it. Mr. X, who was just a con artist, really, sending my information up to something called the Dana Group. Uh, yeah, not was setting me up to be shot as they had all these insurance policies taken out of my life. Um, so this is happening to a number of people, via Sante Group in particular, and they are an international organization. They've got their fingers down in Australia, in France, in the UK, numerous places. Because I knew the more I was reporting the fraud, the more worse things they were doing to me, and they had already misused the QHHT, which is the quantum healing, hypnosis healing technique, which
Right.
is past life regression therapy, which they know it actually it's a known treatment modality which really does work. But of course, these elites have been wanting to keep that quiet for purposes of depopulation, for purposes of control, and because they didn't want people getting better. It really is that simple, and it's an energy thing as well. It goes into energy. It goes into a lot of the things that Tesla studied.
Mhm.
But all of this is now becoming more and more public knowledge as we're having spiritual awakening. This is how Christ is coming back, is that knowledge awakening in each of us in order to right the egregious wrongs and the harms that have happened under Rockefeller and under these Wall Street elites. Rob Wadpond, I don't know if you're familiar with him, had written the book Your Consent is Not Required, and he's a
Yep.
Canadian investigative journalist. So a lot of and I've been in touch with him for quite a while now.
Mhm.
And so we have that intersection of, the fraudulent pseudoscience of psychiatry now coming into collusion with this whole MAID thing. So it really is a depopulation exercise. It is about trying to force people under false pretenses into concentration camps. In order to kill them, harvest the organs. There is a huge lucrative black market in organ trafficking as well as human trafficking. It's done to discredit victims, such as those who had the unfortunate experience of being involved with Epstein.
Hmm.
Epstein being somebody who has colluded with these Wall Street elites and these other eugenicists and other people for consciousness studies, again, which I was abused under that. So it's been an ongoing problem. I feel like now is where people are really starting to see numerous issues with this, the financial conflict of interest, the enormous scam, scheme, fraud, and flim flam that it is. I mean, this is hiding and supporting and allowing identity thieves, allowing people to money launder. This is
Hmm.
where they're money laundering, and it's through these so-called insurance and all this other stuff. They know it's a load of hooey. They know it's nothing but a crock of crap, and that people are really being literally tortured, like I was. Certainly, even just on those drugs, they know they're torturing them on these drugs. They know they are actively causing and creating things like tardive dyskinesia,
Hmm.
akathisia, all this other stuff. They know this. It's not even like they can pretend like they didn't know prior to putting it on the market. It's just that they've been obfuscating the information intentionally from Big Pharma. And
Yeah.
as this is coming to the surface, and you can't pay everybody off. I made it real clear they're not going to be able to pay me off, and I know what happened to me. And I've been making these reporting it to the licensing boards and other people all
Hmm.
along. I've made no bones about it.
Yeah.
I haven't been shy about it, and that and like I said, when the FBI won't even take my call, it's because they know I'm telling the truth, and I'm sure they are not sure how it is they're going to be able to handle. Because I had told that one lawyer, I said there isn't enough money you could ever pay me in the world to make up for what I've gone through, and there's
Right.
not. It was the rape of my soul. It was
Hmm.
people literally torturing me. I did nothing to deserve that. Nobody deserves that. I'm sickened.
Yep.
And the more that I hear other people being able to speak out about even just what the drugs alone have done, but the intentional brain damage of electrocution. And I was dead, and they knew I couldn't object, but my will and wishes were very, very clear in writing. I don't ever want this. And also, don't send me back to my ex. He's going to kill me. He has tried, and they did nothing. They
Making
forced
up
me to stay
reasons
with him.
to yeah, just making up reasons to harm people. And
That's it.
if you don't
That's it.
believe it, just get caught up by that system. These are
Mhm.
not nice people. These are not the kind of
No,
people that you would consider to be
no,
doctors and nurses. These are people that are
no.
very opinionated, very bigoted. They don't want to listen to anything that you have to say. And it seems like this is really, when I look back and even what's going on today, as we see AI targeting, being it's just a reflection of us, right? It's what we consider, calculate this thing to be important, calculate that thing to not be important. At the end of the day, it's a calculation. It's not intelligence. It's calculating. But just really since 2001, I think it's just been a roller coaster ride of devaluing life
Yeah,
to
yeah,
the greatest degree possible. And I
yeah,
think a lot of this medical intrusion is part of that because, you look at what was done with COVID, how that was coerced, forced, that type of thing. You look at the chronic pain thing, that's a thing I get to deal with from now and then. For the most part, I mean, my status on that, I get my 4 Tylenol with codeines a day. Okay. Tylenol threes, I take 4 a day. That's it. And I don't have
yeah.
a threat with that right now, but there's times when, man, but I like something that more,
I get
because
that.
they just
I get
don't
it.
get it anymore. And I'm
Yeah,
to the point of saying, I think even made a recommendation. It's time to just, since they've legalized marijuana and they're moving in that direction, it's really time to legalize the poppy again and let the artisan market take over and get these people that are in these massive amounts of pain out of the pain that the medical industry refuses to do. I mean, pain is pain. This notions of addiction, I don't even want to hear it anymore. It's I think it's the whole issue of getting in the line. You know when you're racked up in pain, and honestly, if someone goes and really short circuits themselves with a lot of the opiates. And probably if we grew up with them, I don't think they would be as um, pervasive as a problem. And really, when I look at addiction, that's more of a society problem. All these people that just want to check out of a society that doesn't care, doesn't value life, doesn't give a crap what happens to them anyway. So they're like, well, why am I even going to try? So I can kind of understand, even talking to some of the people we've had on some of the CSX support groups who are left in these horrific, conditions of poverty and virtually no way to get out and express themselves and their spirituality or participate in life. They're denied even that ability to do that. I mean, that's almost, are we deliberate? We have deliberately built a system like that for those people.
Yes.
It's a
Yes.
hell. It's a hellhole, and they get put in that, and they get stuck in that, and we deny their spirituality left and right. I mean, that if I would say what's 90% of the psych industry is denying spirituality, ridiculing it,
Yeah.
making fun of it, calling it a disease, calling it a hallucination, calling it something other than what it is a very useful tool for people that know how to use it. Um, yeah, and and we even see it today. It's why I would love to see somebody file war crimes complaints against some of these AI targeting companies and just say, why don't we look at the algorithm? That's something that can be,
Right.
I, you can look at that independent of sensor technology and classification levels and things of that nature. How did you program this thing to think? Why are we killing so many people who have nothing to do with this political skirmish between groups? And really, we're doing it on purpose. That's why. I mean,
Right.
I can't think of any other reason. I've been in the military. I'm a veteran myself. I was in 1987. I was on alert with the 5th Combat Communications Group to go in and do exactly what we're doing right now, which was attacking Iran as they had put the Chinese Silkworm missiles up in the Gulf and the tanker
Mm,
wars began. So we had a
right.
radio in our headquarters building, and we knew when the tankers were going through, when they weren't. And, we were told, go home, make out a will. They said, you've got, when the alert goes off, you've got 45 minutes to get to base. If you don't show up anyway, because we're shipping you off to Leavenworth. Basically,
Yeah.
don't bring your ID cards, don't bring, the weapons issued in the air and go in with nothing. So basically, it was go in, take territory. We'd leave Robbins Air Force Base, head to another base, pick up some other people, and head over there. And at that time, we were the communications link between the Army and the Navy. So we still had time, that was back when we could do a lot more of this kind of power projection before the days of precision strike and before the days when the conditions massively changed. And even then, it was incredibly risky for us to be doing that because they didn't figure that many of the people who went on that little excursion were going to come back alive. And I know that for a fact. So, you know, it, I'm not saying it as I'm not trying to say don't ever fight. I mean, I was willing to go at the time. I was ready to go. Every time the beeper went off, I was, let's go. We're
Yep.
going. And it didn't happen. But thinking back on those days and what's going on now, uh, just making stuff up to make this stuff happen. It was the same back then as it is now. It was we want to control things. We want to tell people what to do. We want to you know be in control of a particular, well, it boils down to the international dollar. It's the petrodollar. We needed that.
Yes.
We
Yes.
needed that to live way, way, way beyond our means. And whatever it took to keep that going, we would do it. And I think people started getting a realization that around that time, 2000, 2001, we either had to become an empire and dominate everybody, or we're going to have to put up with losing that at some point in the future. And I think what we've done is made the future come very, very near. I think we've made
Yeah.
everybody sick of us, and we don't want to look at ourselves. And I think the psych industry is really just an extension of that kind of mentality. Let's not look at ourselves. Let's just blame everybody else. You got a problem. We're going to pathologize you. There's spirituality is junk, and get out of our hair. So,
Yeah.
so don't come to us and talk about that. Or if you do get certified under the,
Yeah.
you know, you bring that part of it up. I guarantee you the certification process is going to go on and on. They'll keep dragging it out just because of that. So it's an existential threat to our liberty, to just about
Very much.
everything. And I really am shocked that there's not more just extremely vocal protesting about this, other than just, I think I've never seen the US so complacent either, so morally complacent. And maybe that's where they wanted us to be, to where we just don't care.
People are just trying to survive, and I think that's kind of where that is. I will say though, I know that there's a number of whistleblowers that have gone behind the scenes to push back against this overreach, this authoritarianism of the pseudoscience
Hmm.
of psychiatry. I think there have been more than a few people who have witnessed it and have been sickened by what they've either, unknowingly participated in or were attempted to be forced to participate in. And I know that was the case even with mine, just me myself. But that would go, again, for other people as well, because like I say, I'm far from the only person who was caught up in all this. I am the only one that I know being quite this vocal, no personally, but I've seen other things, seen evidence from other people. So this, and like I say, it was very hyper focused in Maryland for a few
Hmm.
different reasons, not the least of which Social Security being there. You have a lot of black ops money in Maryland. There's been MK Ultra studies there before on the soldiers who were serving in down in Edgewood and Aberdeen. So a number of things that,
Yeah.
you know, uh, and like I say, DC is right there, so it
Hmm.
is very, very easy for them to manipulate certain things in Maryland and then to try and enforce that across the country.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and that's unfortunate, but it's true. Um, Having said that, it is something that this doesn't make the news because a lot of these media companies are funded by Big Pharma, which has long been a problem. I do feel like, regardless of all that, I mean, when it's like 85% of advertising budget for a lot of these places or advertising support comes out of Big Pharma, that's beyond problematic. So you're not necessarily getting some of the reporting on the things like we're talking about. I think globally, though, we're going to be seeing a whole paradigm shift in this because people, going even back to as, and I don't remember when this was, I guess the early 2000s sometime, with Occupy Wall Street. So it's not as though people haven't seen certain things. I mean, that was certainly pre-pandemic. So, we've only seen that, of course, get exponentially worse from these elites and the WEF, where the literal son of a Nazi was in charge for a long time. So that really should speak volumes to people right there.
Hmm.
Uh, so it is a matter of, at this point, being able to take all the things that were low key being studied by the government, all the MK Ultra stuff, everything that I was tortured with and victimized by. But I know how I got a healing from QHHT.
Right.
Now, they shouldn't have been attempting to sabotage that. And here's where it comes in with that pain issue. Because I never thought I'd ever be able to sit comfortably again, let alone walk without assistance. But I can. That's a
Mm.
miracle. They should not have attempted to sabotage that. They were utilizing me as a guinea pig. I'm horrified by what I've been through. But I want to speak up about it because I know that this is a treatment that, when ethically used and followed up, literally cannot work miracles. And again, combining that with other things, nutrition and stuff like that,
Hmm.
it really makes a huge difference. I think that their push is because we are having a spiritual awakening that has been predicted, and they have been trying to get ahead of the curve to stop it because they see their whole empire of nonsense falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
They know it's a house of lies and a house of cards, and all we got to do at this point, and it's all going to fall over, and they know it's at that point already. This is why they're trying to fancy dance around all this stuff coming out, and thank God RFK Jr. is in there as the health secretary, because we finally have somebody that's listening. We finally have somebody that's going to be doing the work, and this was why I wanted to vote for him for president anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was anti-corporate. He's been anti-corporate, pro-environment, a lot of things that I have always supported as, again, a staunch independent. So I'm very glad that we have someone in there who is listening, who is going to do something. And that's why I say that, that's where the paradigm shift is in terms of dealing with pain, because I agree. I had to cage pills from people and stuff. I hated it. But it's
Yeah.
because they wanted to mismark me down as psych. And I'm pissed off about that, because all those years my heart problems got worse, my lupus got worse, the nerve
Right.
damage got worse, and there was no need for me to suffer like that. I'm
No.
horrified that they forced that on me. But in they're trying to do bad to what I don't know what their point was, to get my information and then to misuse me, basically rape my soul, rape
Right.
everything about me, and in addition to having had them studying how it was when an infant and a toddler gets raped and filming that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not happy about that, and that's again Hopkins. So they hold a lot of culpability with what happened to me, and they know it, and they know I know it, and they know I'm telling the truth, and they know those films are still out there being used as compromise, and I'm horrified by that too. But there isn't anything I can do about that other than how I handle myself at this point, to make sure that I'm helping trauma survivors, that I'm helping people with pain management. Like, hey, yes, this QHHT, it works. And here's how you can
Mm-hmm.
follow that up, so you're not dealing with that constant pain. I could remember a doctor saying to me when I was in the midst of it, well, don't you want to get to the root cause? I said, well, could you please, for the love of God, could you please? I said, I can't stand this. And when I was lucky, even some of the strongest pain medication, if I was lucky, worked for maybe 4 hours, maybe.
Right.
And then I would need it again, and I thought, this is a hell. I don't want to live like
Yeah.
this. Just get rid of the pain. The hell with the pills. It's not the pills I want. It's to be out of pain. It was to be able to just sit and sleep properly.
Oh yeah.
And
It's like
and unless people are going through that, and I don't wish it on anyone, I mean, you just don't know how horrible it is. And when it's in your feet and you can't walk, it's like I used to tell people, well, what the fuck do you expect me to do? Sprout wings and fly? Because that's the only way I'm going to get around. And
right.
and I'm so grateful all the time. I mean, yes, I still have residual nerve damage. I still have heart problems. I still got lupus. And sometimes, like, my leg will just go completely numb, or one side of it, and it causes problems. But that's nowhere near what I was dealing with before.
Oh yeah.
So I think
Good.
if we're taken and able to do that, and again to have, and thank God they're reclassifying the medical marijuana, they're reclassifying the mushrooms. Great. These
Mm-hmm.
are all steps in a positive direction, because again, when you're dealing with certain things with trauma, to have somebody who understands from the indigenous way of doing things, because you don't need it every day. For the love of God, you don't need hallucinogens every day. But
Right.
you have a trip that you go through, and have it be guided, and have it be with people that know what they're doing, to be able to help, break some of those loops and cycles in the brain,
Mm-hmm.
and get people working, and then have them start thinking in a way that's different, and then support that with community, support that with people
Right.
who are that on a positive vibration. That's another thing too. They don't want to discuss, like Raymond Rural Rife. Like I said, I have a frequency generator. That thing works wonders. And that
Mm-hmm.
goes back to a lot of what Tesla studied as well. So it really is about bringing back these ancient techniques, the things that were pre-Rockefeller, the thing, and really all anybody needs to do is see where the money's going, to see where the fraud is. And now that they're finding all these massive frauds, and like I said, it's unfortunate that I know some of this up close and personal, how these frauds have been.
Mm-hmm.
It's a what happened to me was a multi-state identity theft, fraud ring. And these are not good people. Um, and it has to do with psych and all this, because the butcher that was in charge of what happened to me was for a while one of the Maryland psychiatric whatever head things. And I'm like, this is just disgusting. And it is disgusting and it is
It
perverse.
is.
And like I had written to somebody earlier today, I said, I don't even have the words, and I don't think words exist for just how evil this is. And I'm horrified that I went through it, but may God use me to help expose it. May God use me to help build something better. Uh, and
Right.
and I say that all the time, and I mean it, and people know I mean it, and I'm sure they knew through the misuse of hypnotherapy, because I actually can remember when that butcher, one of the first times she came to see me, I I kind of blacked out and yelled at her. And that was when the hypnotherapist, I didn't realize that at the time, and what was going to happen to me. But now I know why. Because what channeling is, and when you get to a point of a particular kind of anger, and I had already had been at that boiling point, because I knew I didn't trust her. I knew I wasn't comfortable with her. And
Mhm.
I knew something didn't smell right, and really about my whole situation. I just didn't realize exactly how wrong it was. But that's
Right.
why I say I look at it from the spiritual aspect of it, that God had given me this assignment and I had planned my life beforehand. Um, and I was given this assignment for a reason. And I'd even said it once to Mr. X, I'm here to stop a second Holocaust. And
Hmm.
I knew that what I was saying was true. And of course, like I said, anytime I would, I said I knew these folks were Nazis and all. And at least one time he just up and spit on me and then backhanded me for even saying it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I knew I was speaking the truth. I knew that. And a lot of this stuff, like I said, what they're attempting to do, because it was psychiatrists who were in charge of the camps and in charge of the selection, meaning who lived, who died, and how they were going to torture them, and
Hmm.
all these experimentations. It was all psychiatrists. That's why I'm glad nobody says Asperger's anymore. Asperger was a Nazi, so I don't appreciate that. Let's just say autistic or neurodivergent. Um, and it is a direct continuation of that. And anybody who knows a little bit about history can find out what happened with Project Paperclip and which
Hmm.
American places were involved, and that definitely includes Hopkins, and it definitely includes Shepard Pratt. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I think when you look at all that too, it gets back to this whole notion of what is intelligence and what are we doing here. They have this notion that we're on this continually evolving, right? This is the toxicity of Darwinism as it comes in, that, our we're evolving in our industrial capacity and our science and in this and that. And really, no, I think that we devolved quite a bit and we're kind of
yes,
stumbling our way into other territories here and there. But for the most part, I'll never forget the level of intelligence that I went into and I passed over. And oh my God, it was nothing compared. You can't even compare what you're allowed to access as a human with what it was, once that veil of deception is completely rejected and taken off of you, then you're back to
oh yeah,
normal at that point. And you know, it's hard to convey the power of these experiences and how important that they are to erase people's trauma. I mean, and the
yeah,
notion that, you know, when I see psych, they're trying to keep that thing of we have scientific progress alive. So what these people are doing, they're not scientists as much as they are
no,
sadists. They
yeah,
view themselves as scientists. They view themselves as the leading edge of, investigative work. And really, no, you're not. You're not doing that at all. What you are is you're just a pill pusher
yeah,
and you make fun of the most useful tools that we have available to us as, sentient beings. And that is to be able to access our spirituality, engage it, use it, and employ it. I didn't understand it until I understood the fact that we don't have to wait for our bodies to die to have that see the light, go through the merging kind of experience. And then when I read the Bible, it's like, there it all is. Yep, it's right there. That's the same darn thing. Looking at the New Testament, what are they doing? They're teaching people the process. What is that process doing? It's causing these people to have these massive, immersive spiritual experiences. It's
Yeah.
in the text. And once you step outside the Protestant Bible and even step outside the Catholic Bible and you add in some of the Gnostic Gospels and some of the
Right.
things about, when gnosis, when they're changed, some of the people chasing that was even more clear about what it was that they're doing and going after. So you know that some of this is part of this whole thing in some way, shape, or form. We don't have all the answers yet. Clearly, you and I mean, we're still dealing with the dialogue. We still have to deal with the stigma. It's really difficult for us, even today, to go into any kind of a doctor's office and have a realistic conversation about the kind of things we can sit here and talk about on these meetings. So we still have a long way to go, unfortunately, in all this. And it's sad that we could be doing a whole lot more useful um, investigation work. But one of the things that has to go is this notion that we're an evolutionary species and we're having an evolutionary science. When it comes to psych, that's a devolutionary
Oh yeah.
science at best. It's knuckle dragging, and really most of it is just, keeping alive this notion of how do we degrade other people. I don't care about someone's sanctimony. You feel bad for somebody, great, that what does that do?
Right.
I don't want to hear when someone tries to really, that's what they were doing to me through the 21 days of just sanctimonious. Don't you really want what we have to offer? No, no, I
Mhm.
don't. I can tell you what I
Same
know.
here. I
If you
get
want to
it.
listen to what I have to do, that's fine. But otherwise, shut up, get out of my way, get out of my health care, leave me
Yes.
alone, and stop talking to me. Not because I'm, a difficult person to talk to, but I don't put up with bull crap. And I certainly
Same.
don't put up with it in a medical environment from people that don't know what they're doing, haven't walked a minute in my shoes, much less, a mile in them, and, are just out of the box hostile. Let's just go away and get away from me. And
Yeah.
I see their influence, everywhere. I see that influence in how we behave in society today, what kind of society we think is going to dominate the world. Well, I think that the rest of the world is sending us a pretty clear message that you can keep that to yourselves. We don't want it. So,
Yeah.
okay. So what's so great about what we're doing then? Start stacking that up, and suddenly that's not adding up very too much either. So,
Yeah.
and the consistent thing about it is let's rag on spirituality. Let's
Yeah.
normalize lying. Let's make that okay. Let's we'll just get into narrative management. You just come in, you do this job, and you'll be taken care of. You'll be fine. You can check your morality at the door. You can harm as many people as we tell you to. Don't worry about it. Crap happens. We're just, you know, scientists, right? And
Yeah.
it's garbage. It's just complete garbage. So,
It's unethical. It's amoral. It's all owned by profiteers, where they have put it into these real estate investment trusts. Again, that's where a lot of this healthcare is owned by that now,
oh,
and
sober living homes. Yeah, I mean,
all of it,
stack it up. You will
all of it.
flip out. What they do to sober living homes, even. I was
Yes,
that's when someone will go in and get a residential house, and then they take people who are coming out of rehab and they'll stack them two, if or three in a
oh
room,
yeah,
or however many people they can cram in there. And then the person who owns that place, they set up charities and whatnot, but they are getting paid tons of money. It's like Section 8 real estate. And
yes.
you're getting subsidized rent for
Fraud.
that person, and it's quite a bit. Those people are raking in a ton of money. You get a
It's
five
trafficking.
bedroom, six bedroom sober living house, you got a dozen, 12, 13 people living in there. You're looking at, 10 grand a month.
It's
And what are
trafficking.
they going to spend on
It's
it? Next to
benefits
nothing.
trafficking. It's
Yeah,
benefits
it
trafficking.
is.
And
Absolutely.
people are now catching on to that because the situation in Maryland is quite bad. And
Hmm.
it has been for at least 20 years and probably more. And there's been computer fraud that they've caught with this damn Sante group, who's and in cahoots with WellCare, who was popped for the biggest Medicare and Medicaid fraud in American history several years back now. I mean, to the tune of billions, and via fraudulent behavioral health and all this.
Hmm.
So
Oh
in
yeah.
that way, I'm very glad that I was not that what I went through, but for the fact that I've still come out the other side and have been able to report all along and do the steps to try and report this because people know I'm telling the truth.
Right.
And the fact that this was happening on such a massive, massive scale across several states, thereby breaking federal laws as well as state laws. And for
Hmm.
that, I'm grateful because all of this is getting ready to come out. That massive amount in billions in fraud that it's multi-state. It's not just Minnesota, and it's all
Oh.
interconnected. This is the thing. It's also interconnected to Massachusetts, California, and the hospice fraud. All of it has to do with identity theft. All of it has to do with deliberately, fraudulently making things up on people's medical records, just making things up out of whole cloth. And it has to do with
Yeah.
enacting this fraudulent with this Action T4. And if people go back and read what Action T4 was in Nazi Germany, they will see the exact same thing happening again, not just here in the States, but Canada, Ireland,
Right.
England, Wales, Scotland,
Yeah.
Australia. It's happening everywhere that Sante is, and they are the ones who are kind of writing the template and pulling the strings. And that goes for
What's the
other.
behavior?
Yes, yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. The
They
medical
as they
kidnapping
self
is
audit
lucrative,
themselves.
right?
It
It's so
is very much
arbitrary.
so.
It's
And
arbitrary and it's lucrative, and that's how they've been getting away with it so
mhm.
far. But thank God again that the current administration and they're doing this fraud busting and they're seeing it in behavioral health. Well, now the snake is eating its own tail. And now it's going to have to come to the surface, and that's why I'm very, very very passionate about building the framework that supports deprescribing, that supports addictions and trauma reintegration, that doesn't have the drugs, but addresses the root cause of trauma. I'm
Mhm.
glad that I see other people, Dr. Gabor Mate, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, numerous others who have been trying to get this as a thing, to not be reliant to just this myth of the whole chemical imbalance. It's marketing. It got to get out of here. Get it out. Stop it. They know it's a bull.
Yeah, get it out.
They know it's a
Mhm.
bullshit. They
Yeah.
know these drugs are nothing but chemical restraints and things that are neurotoxic. They know they're poisons. They've known it since before they were put on the market, and they know they've been trying to cover it
Mhm.
up for numerous years. And that I know they're scared of lawsuits, but I don't give a high
They don't
flying
care.
goddamn. No, it is fraud, and it is deliberately hurting people for money. It's blood money. They know this. They
Yeah,
know it,
they
and
should be
and
afraid
and
of
we know
prison
now
because
too. Yeah, it's why people have
it's
been
really gone
dying.
beyond.
Yeah,
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 it's gone beyond the lawsuit thing because they've become so
yes.
indemnified as we went to this, publicly funded healthcare. They run around convincing people, oh, it's all the we have to practice defensive because of all those evil, lawyers that are. Again, I offered 50,000 cash to anybody that would just take my case. Nobody would. Nobody would
Yeah,
pick up and do a thing. So I knew there was a problem with that,
yes.
and just the cavalier way that they treated me while I was in there, just ignoring major health issues, exacerbating major health issues, showing completely no concern for that whatsoever, and then getting out and I'm luckily I wrote that paper when I was in there because that really triggered the guy to go in and testify well, it really brought out the lying, just the outright
Yeah.
lying. Number of fabricated entries in my medical records, stuff that never
Same
happened,
here.
was
Same
stuck
here.
in there to build up the narrative. It had
Yep.
nothing to do what you ever said. Oh my God. If you would take a semi-competent attorney who's good at deposing people and go in and really hammer somebody on one of these cases of medical kidnapping, I think that the people that you're talking to would cave in a hurry because they've not been used to being talked to like that. They've not been used to being held accountable for anything. They feel very comfortable about completely fabricating records doesn't.
They've acted with impunity. Froze up there for a minute.
I wanted that guy. I wanted to hire that guy. I wanted to get that guy in here because he was deposing me. He was raking me over the coals, and I was being cooperative. And I remembered everything that, I was. They ended up losing basically because of my testimony. But the point is, he was a real good interrogator. He knew how to interrogate people if there was, and he would get the way he would ask questions, switch the question up, go back another way, go this way, then make an accusation. And you had to kind of defend yourself against this guy. He would have just, he would have ruined them. And it would have been a slam dunk case. But all that has been hidden behind um, the non-disclosure agreements, especially with pharma. How
Yeah.
many times have I heard the stories afterwards of people who have sued the psych industry who are told that if they don't sign a non-disclosure, they're not going to settle. And if someone does propose a settlement and you have an attorney who's worked on it and you refuse that non-disclosure, they may come after you for the amount of money that they would have gained from the case that you
Yeah.
didn't sign a non-disclosure agreement for. So don't even think that the legal industry is on par, on your side, looking out after you, or even giving
Yeah.
a rat's ass about your fundamental rights, your health care, your right to make a decision, or anything else. They are flat out facilitating criminal behavior.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of people out there that have no qualms about popping in there and making a big living
Oh yeah.
doing just that.
Yeah,
So,
that's why even though I had inquired, and one place down in Florida was interested enough because they knew that this kind of fraud has been happening, these medical kidnappings and all that, and they were interested enough, and I guess obviously knew or had some familiarity with these folks up in Baltimore. But I think the reason they didn't take my case, they knew I wasn't going to sign a non-disclosure. They knew I wasn't going to do it.
mhm,
Not this bitch. This Cherokee bitch is mouthy, and
right.
I'm not. And I'm so tired of all this. And even these folks who do manage to get some money, sometimes it ends up getting contested and all this, and then they're hamstrung because they've signed a non-disclosure agreement, so they can't even talk about what they know. And I'm like, I ain't pulling that.
Right.
It's too important to me. I don't give a damn. I get, one thin dime, not one red cent. I need money to live, but I'm trying to actually do something that's productive, that makes sure that people aren't ever in the kind of position I was in because it's wrong. And I think of all that money
Right.
they wasted to try and disable my brain, to try and give me brain damage and nervous system damage. I mean, I am sickened. I am sickened by what these people did to me. But it's not just me,
Yeah.
it's happening too. So I want to make sure that I am there on the other side of this, doing the right thing by people, doing the right thing, not just for myself, but for other people, because this should just not be happening. So I want to be able to present
Right.
something that does make sense, where people are actually being healed, where people are able to be proactive in their health and not need to be reliant on any of these frauds, crooks, criminals, schemers, scammers, and thieves. I don't want that.
Right.
And nobody else does either, because it's not good. You really want to make America healthy again, and this is how you have to do it, by what I'm doing, because the other route is just eugenics, and it's just death, and it's fraud,
Yep.
and it's blood money. and the only people
Hmm.
doing anything off that are the Wall Street elites, and this is just a no-go. And the same thing where AI has been, that's where they try to replace morality. And as you were talking earlier about evolution, well, spiritual is part of that evolution. That's the main component of what evolution actually is to be in that next level. I remember one of the times when
Evolving back to honesty, right?
that's
And
it.
evolving away from deception, if you want to do it that. But
That's it.
that
That's it. And one of the times I got in trouble on Facebook because I was talking about ether, or the ability of the ether and all that. Oh, you can't talk about that. Who
huh,
the hell are you? Because you don't tell them the truth. That's
right.
what they don't like, because for the most part, because I scam bust and all so damn much, they've actually asked me to be part of like community notes and things of that nature because I'm very into you better tell the truth. I do not
Yeah.
like scams. I will go out of my way to find those like publishers clearinghouse scammers, report, block, all that shit. Find all these other
Yeah.
people that look like they're just nothing but a fraud ring, and I'm beep, 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 beep. And I'll do that when I'm listening to the radio. I find it relaxing to bust these frauds.
Yeah. It bugs
Um,
me too. Right.
yeah, it bothers me so much that there are just such parasitic profiteers out there in any and all walks of life. It just is anathema to me. I can't stand it. And I,
These people are especially slimy though. I think, and I agree with you. I am not going to take a dime that comes with a gag order because there's no way I'm shutting up about this. What happened to me was directly related to a spiritual experience. So there's absolutely no flipping way on this universe. There's no way I'm going to deny it. And
yep,
they were determined to make me deny it. And they were drug it out for 21 flipping days, put me into a health crisis, called my family members up, told them all kinds of crap about me that wasn't even remotely
yep,
close to being true. It took me a couple years, and in some cases, there's still not damage, still hasn't been cleared up just with my two sons. I don't even want to get into the rest of the mess. There's some people I just completely went no contact with that I'm not even going to bother, trying to interface with anymore because it just, I'm not going to put up with it. I'm not going to tolerate it. You want to, I don't let other people speak for me. I don't let others people try and put my life in their context and sell that as something that's realistic because it's not.
yeah,
And so I'll speak for myself. Thank you very much. And
exactly.
appreciate the people that just get on out the way. You want to have a dialogue,
Right,
I have a dialogue,
right.
but no, you know, I'm done. I am done tolerating stuff like that. And I don't feel that any of us really should have to tolerate the psych industry. I'm not,
Yeah,
advocating violence in any way, shape, or form, but I think telling people get away from me, leave me
that's
alone.
it.
I'm not talking to you. I'm not answering your questionnaires. I'm not going to let you investigate me in a
Right,
controlled environment.
right.
I think we really need a statement of patients' rights that when someone walks in, they read it to them and basically let them know that I'm not talking to you. And there's a number of really good reasons why you should not talk to these people. They
That's
don't
right.
have your best interests at heart.
Not at
They
all.
have a horrible rating when it comes to diagnostic accuracy. They have done absolutely nothing to improve the suicide rate, even though they claim that that is one of the things that they specialize in. Their addiction cure rate is horrific. They might as well, I mean, there's so much false advertising
Yeah,
about what they are, what they do, and what they're capable of doing. You're insane if you try and talk with them I would rather talk to somebody that's been living on the street for
yeah,
10 years and survive, and then I would rather talk to a psych person. And quite frankly, I'd probably get better advice from them.
yeah. Boy,
So,
you would.
just the stuff that they have to put up, deal with, and I think the notion that all those people are crazy is wrong. I've talked to them. I don't do that all the time. I don't immerse myself in that, and I don't want to claim to be an expert or stretch too much. But I had a lot of perfectly normal conversations with people that were being held under suspicion, of
Yeah,
having some kind of a psych ailment. They were, I didn't have a problem talking to them. I don't
Yeah.
understand why they did, you know?
Yeah. And it's just money. They really
Hmm.
are predatory. They're predatory,
Yeah.
they're parasitic. I mean, in my case, they were going out of their way to deliberately misclassify my trauma to make it lucrative for them. They knew I was
Hmm.
being beat. They knew I was being abused. They knew I wanted to leave him, but they were paying him to be there so he could micromanage me and write a bunch of falsities and help them bolster a phony false narrative while they took my stuff. Deed theft,
Hmm.
mortgage fraud, fraud, credit line theft, identity theft, all of it,
Yep.
all of it. And I'm sickened by what happened. And I'm sickened that they
Mhm.
supported that. And I'm sickened they looked at me as a human experiment. I'm fucking
Yeah.
sick about it.
It,
But it
it's
happened.
sick how common it is. It
It
shouldn't
is.
even exist. But,
No.
I think there was another article I saw this week about somebody talking about how did we let the medical industry become so corrupt. And I think that's pretty obvious on its surface. I don't think you'll have to look very hard. I think, that in large part gets down to the practitioners. And when you're part of a scam. When you're, you know, I don't know how some of these people sleep. I really don't. I really don't. I guess I would expect some of them to have a conscience or morals to have some of this bug them, but no. After interfacing with some of them, I realize no, they don't. They'll sleep just fine, and they'll get up and they'll do it over and they'll do it over and they'll do it over again.
Well, I think we've had a lot of the ones who have had any kind of morality or conscience have either
It's not
retired.
about you, it's all about them. Evidence
Yeah.
that they are better than everybody else because they say they are. So that's what I see about them.
Yeah.
I keep having this bar pop
I
up and I
think
don't.
any of the
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I think any of the doctors that have been decent, that have been moral, that have stood up against all this, were ones who were there prior to this whole corrupt corporate takeover.
Hmm.
And now we're seeing them either having to retire because they're older, or some have unfortunately passed away. Others who have just not been able to stand what they saw and probably have become behind the scenes whistleblowers. It's like I say, my gut feeling is this stuff is getting ready to come to the surface, and it's going to break in a big way. Just who's been pulling the strings, and it's these Wall Street elites and the puppeteers at these corrupt corporations, and many of them
Hmm.
based in China and via all this money laundering and other stuff, and it's a lot of folks who are generally known to be hostile towards United States interests and the United States way
Hmm.
of life. And a
Hmm.
lot of this, when this is going to come out, it's going to be very upsetting to a lot of people. But you know what? I guess we need that upset. I guess we need it so people
We
can
do.
see what this fraud is, and why we've been being bled dry, as you know, and working class. Well, you know what? We don't even have jobs anymore due to this AI and these globalist elites, and that's a problem. And it's becoming a larger and larger problem, and one that's not able to be ignored any longer. And I do feel like we've had people at a groundswell like trying to come up against this, but not necessarily getting any traction. Well, now that the fraud is becoming very, very blatant, very obvious, and in the billions of dollars with a B, particularly post pandemic, and that opened a lot of people's eyes to this too. I feel like now it's going to be a matter of we the people getting together and building the better tomorrow, because real change just has to happen from the bottom up. I've not ever seen it happen truly from the top down.
It won't come from the top down. The top down is dead. When
Yeah.
you deal with people that lie for a living, they're too afraid to tell the truth, and that counts for the psych industry as much as it counts for the political class. They'll never improve. They'll never do better. What they do is double down on coercion, name calling, dehumanization, the same dynamic that you get sucked into when someone certifies you. is the same dynamic on a larger scale. It plays out as you start dehumanizing your enemy, start, devaluing that person. No, they're all horrible. We got to kill every one of them. If we don't kill all of them, they're it's just madness. People have lost their minds. They don't even, they are so, and that's the thing about people who've not renounced their freedom to lie. Coercion
Yeah.
is their go-to thing. That's what they use. That's what they'll pull on you. That's what they'll use on you
Mhm.
because that is their tool of last resort. Because in their minds, they can torture, coerce, do something to you to cause you to change your behavior, but when you're standing up for a spiritual experience that's undeniable, then as we were talking the other week, the coercion doesn't work anymore. If anything, that's tackling fuel. That's going to make me even more determined to get that done. So yeah, pour it on, bring it on. Watch what you're going to get from it, which is, just be even more inspired to go through and burn the house down because it needs to happen. It's overdue.
Yeah.
And every year this goes by without change, it bothers me. I feel like I haven't done enough, and I'm getting tired of feeling like that.
Yeah. That's what makes me just very determined. I mean, there's a number of things that fuel my fire, but I mean, having been deliberately put through death experiences and having had a lot of that misused, my faith and the faith in certain people that I knew were on my side, that were part of my soul family, and the more understanding I've gotten, and the more my consciousness is expanded, and the more I understand it through various philosophies and books and things that make it make sense and really make what Jesus was saying make even more sense from the Gnostic Gospels and other things, I have zero fear.
Hmm?
And the knowledge of the people that did me wrong, it's just made me more determined to report them.
Yeah,
I had no fear of getting in touch with investigative reporters whatsoever,
right.
across the board, in multiple places, and I still don't.
No.
And people know where I am. I have zero fear of it. I feel like you could have let me just die if you were ethical people, but no, you kept shocking me and experimenting on me, and I'm real
Hmm.
pissed. And it's
Yeah.
not that I wanted to die. You weren't letting me get away and start my life over like I'm doing now. So now I have what I want. And I feel like, well, this kind of plays into that multiverse theory about raising the vibration and all, because I'm at a vibration where I need to be. I'm moving into
Yeah.
now being on the vibration people where I'm at, the same resonance. I take what resonates with me. I say what's important. I
Hmm.
understand now about how energy carries on. I understand what channeling is. Nobody should have ever misused me as a canary in a coal mine and a human experiment with the quantum.
Right.
And again, we're talking about quantum, as an energy experiment, as a consciousness experiment. Shame on them for raping my soul that way. But God has a
Hmm.
way of putting things right, and that's where I'm at this point. And I'm grateful for it. I have a lot of things to look forward to. The understanding that I have and the peace that does surpass all understanding, I'm so grateful for that. And for me to be able to
Yeah.
be in a place where I can help other people achieve that, and to help build what this new earth is going to be, because I really do feel like we are at revelations. We are at that point again in civilization, and it's happened multiple times before. It's covered in the Bible, covered in history,
Hmm.
where humans have tried to play God as opposed to realizing
Right.
they are a piece of God. And that's where we are. That's why so much is going to crumble apart. It is another Tower of Babel moment. God isn't wanting to put another flood out there, so it's more about awakening in us the part of Christ that's in each of us. And that's why we
Hmm.
have this awakening. That's how Jesus is coming back. It's through each of us. It's through each of us following,
Yeah.
literally following his example and doing what it is he did, as being willing to just go that far, to show the rot and the the
Right.
that's really come through. And that's why he had said, greater things than I have done will you do. And we are kind of like
Mhm.
the apostles who were being, persecuted, and we're still standing tall, and still doing
Yeah.
what we need to do, and that's, and again, as history repeats, that's the point in history that we're at. And so many of us who have had these spiritual experiences and who have found themselves being, persecuted and targeted by this pseudoscience of psychiatry, and it is a death cult. It's a eugenics death cult.
Yes,
And they need to be stopped. They're modern day
they
Nazis. They
do.
need to be stopped.
And stopped yesterday. So
Yeah,
with that,
absolutely.
we've been at it for well over an hour now. We hit our
Oh
we
wow.
did our time again. So
Wow.
this flew by again.
Really.
Well, thank you so much, Dane. I really appreciate
Thank
your
you,
time
hon.
again. Yeah, it's like
Same
quarter till
here.
22. So I will try and finish up my handyman work as best I can, and then I'll get back to you. So I'll be more prepared next week. So thanks again, though, and talk to you soon.
All righty, hon. Have a good one.
Take
I'll
care.
talk to you soon. See ya.
You too. See you later. Bye bye.